Well, hello, everybody. I am Shelley Thompson. I am going to be your guest host on Voices Carry today. One of our guests today is going to be Alexis Balke. She is the program director at the Center for Children and Family Futures. My other guest is Dr. Bada. She is a macro level social work researcher. I'm going to have these ladies tell you a little bit about themselves and what they do, and then we're going to launch into some exciting stuff.
Thank you so much, Shelley. Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you so much for having us here today. It's just such a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, I'm Alexis Balke. I am the program director at Center for Children and Family Futures, and my particular area of expertise is in family treatment courts. And what we do is provide training and technical assistance to family treatment courts across the country at the state level, the local level, with tribes on implementing family treatment courts, on enhancing or expanding their family treatment courts, and even taking those principles and embedding them into the larger system, which I think I'm going to spend some time talking about a little bit later. And so I've been with CFF for over 13 years, almost 14 years. And it's been an exciting journey for me, and just thrilled again to be here and to talk about the thing that I am so passionate about, family treatment courts. And I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Dr. Bada.
Thank you, Alexis. And thank you again, Shelley, for this opportunity to come and speak about this really important work. I am Katie Bada. I am the Research and Evaluation Program Director for Children and Family Futures. I work in collaboration with Alexis and her team, and we evaluate family treatment courts across the United States in local, rural, tribal, large county jurisdictions. And I'm just happy to come and share a little bit about how you can evaluate your family treatment court to tell the story of the impact of your family treatment court on the families that you serve.
Well, I will tell you at the top of this, I am a treatment court coordinator, and I'm in an adult felony court. And I'm also part of a team whose judge is also a family treatment court judge. And so we sort of share that space on occasion. And one of the things that became very obvious to me, both in my role as a coordinator and in my role at DIMS, is that the family treatment courts are certainly a different animal. And so that's part of what we get into today, is just kind of talking about some of the differences and why that model matters so much. So let's start with your stories. What drew you into the field? What keeps you passionate about it and moving forward, especially over 13 years, Alexis?
Yeah, thanks. Well, it's kind of funny. Honestly, I stumbled into this field by accident and never looked back. My first role was as a behavior coach, working with children diagnosed with Axis 1 disorders, kind of like super nanny. And at that time, I thought I was just helping kids manage behaviors. But the more I spent in group homes and in family settings, the more I realized that it was something much deeper, that nearly every child I worked with had experienced significant trauma. And it wasn't just the child in front of me that needed the support. It really truly was the entire family system. And that realization really lit a fire in me, and I wanted to do more. So after that, I became the manager, the manager of an intensive outpatient substance use disorder treatment program. And we served families only in the child welfare system, and we provided the treatment for what we called a family preservation court. So family treatment court, but we really focused on the preserving families and that pre-violent or intact. And that experience changed everything for me, because when I met with every single parent in the program I met with, and what struck me was that these parents that I was meeting with, these parents in front of me, were the same kids that I used to work with, just grown up. And that these were the children as a system that we had failed. And that is what really hit me hard. And from that moment on, I knew that my mission wasn't just about helping individuals. It was about changing the way that systems see and treat families. And I wanted to really shift that narrative. I wanted to help communities, institutions, systems recognize that humanity, the resilience, the potential in every parent and child. And so that's what really motivated me to quickly pivot, looking for desiring a profession that allowed for systems change. So helping to heal individual families, that was so inspiring. But I knew I could do more. and that I wanted to do more at a larger level through systems change. So it would be this is the most fulfilling work I could ever imagine. And I'm just, so thankful that I had that journey and that now I have the opportunity to work at that systems level and hopefully affect many, many families. And Katie, I'd love to hear about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of parallels in the passion and the strive to do that meaningful type of work, Alexis. So growing up, volunteering was really just part of life in my family. So that instilled in me a really deep passion for social justice. And when I got into social work, I was working directly with folks, and I started to see how much like the bigger systems really, like the policies and programs really affect families. And I think at that point, that's when I was really pulled towards research because I wanted to kind of help those systems that impact entire communities. So, one thing that's always been really important to me is making sure that the work we do is actually effective. And I think that core value kind of goes hand in hand with research and really the importance of evaluation. So I like knowing that the services we offer are backed by solid research. It's how we actually make sure that what we're doing is working for families. And honestly, I really just enjoy the research process. I know that sounds nerdy, but it's kind of like a mystery. I like asking questions. I like digging into things. I like to figure out what's going on. And so that's actually fun for me. And I know many find research very intimidating and they would never use the word fun with research ever. But I do think that it's beyond what people think of as academics or people in labs, and that there's really an opportunity, I think, for everyone in this field to use research in their work. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just about being curious, asking those good questions. And that's really my message that I try to share with others, is that research can be part of everyday practice and why it matters so much. So that's my mission and how I kind of got to where I am today.
Well, thank you both for that background. I will tell you over the I've been coordinating for about 15 years, and over the course of my work with treatment courts, absent the problems, the substance use disorders, and some of the other problems, there's some really terrific parents out there who fail to realize in our systems that, again, absent those problems, we can have really functional and wonderful families. So, for those out there in our audience that are sort of new to this concept, how would you describe a family treatment court, sort in plain
Kind
language?
of in plain language, a family treatment court is a family centered, cross systems collaborative approach to serve families that are involved in the child welfare system that also struggle with substance use. So, in tribal communities, they are often referred to as family healing to wellness courts. So, you might have heard that before. But basically, a family treatment court works with families that have either had a child removed or are at risk of removal due to substance use. And instead of just focusing on, maybe punishing of the parent or punishment of a disease, in this case, a substance use disorder, or removing children from their homes, family treatment courts take a really compassionate, team based approach. They bring together judges, child welfare workers, treatment providers, and many, many other professionals to help children, parents, and family members get into treatment and any other services that they may need to then safely care for their children and thrive as a family. So family treatment courts are a perfect approach for families that need more support, more services and support than traditional child welfare or dependency court systems can provide on their own. So each family in a family treatment court is supported by a team of professionals that meet regularly, usually every week or a minimum every other week, to make sure that they're getting access to what services and other supports that they may need. And during this week or every other week at minimum court hearing, the families get the opportunity to speak directly with the judge and the team and share about what's going well and maybe what they need some help with or what might not be going well. In traditional dependency cases in the traditional system, a family may have to wait 3 or sometimes even more months to talk with the judge and the team. So the team brainstorms and helps find solutions and breaks down barriers that a family might be experiencing every week, every other week. And through this collaboration and problem solving approach, families really get the attention and support that they deserve in a timely manner. And you asked why they matter. They matter because they work. Family treatment courts recognize that healing families is more effective, more humane than breaking them apart. They help parents recover, rebuild trust, reunify with their children in a safe and supportive way. And when families heal, we're really in the business of growing communities. Family treatment courts are an opportunity to give accountability with compassion, problem solving, breaking down barriers, creating real, lasting change for generations. We talked a little bit about this before, but family treatment courts, because of how family centered, intensive family centered they are, they really have the opportunity to break down the cycle of multi-generational system involvement that we all so often see.
If I could just piggyback real quick, Shelly, on what Alexis said, and it directly connects to your next question, why the FTC model matters, and what how do we define that success? And I think the model matters because it is informed by the evidence that we will talk about when how we're measuring that success, and we can't just assume that the courts are working and that that's where the research comes in. Like, are families doing better? Are kids safer? Are kids more stable? Decades of research on family treatment courts have shown us this, that we have higher treatment completion rates, we have shorter time in out of home care, and we know that the cost savings per family is enormous. And so I think FTCs at times could seem more expensive. They have more services, there's more coordination and more hands on support. But in the end, they actually do save money. And I think that also directly connects to your next question, which I'm going to hand it over to Alexis in a second. But I feel like the upfront cost is higher, but the outcomes are better. And so when we can be clear about how we measure the success, then we're able to show really the cost effective approach that family treatment courts are. And at the end of the day, we all want to invest in families, but we actually have to back that up with data, right? We have to show that what we're doing is working. And so it's kind of about proving what works, and then we can keep growing and improving the FTC model.
So having said that is, that brings an interesting point, because something that I personally have always been interested in, and something that will now rely on you for some of your expertise. If you were building a data dashboard, so you wanted to measure what was going on in a family treatment court, what would be the most like must-have metrics? I mean, what is the most critical in terms of measuring out?
Sure, I'll take that one first. I actually love this question because I feel it's something that tribes, states, counties, jurisdictions are doing. They're building data dashboards, or they're trying to figure out how to do it, and they're thinking about developing them. And that's actually something that the team that I lead at Children and Family Futures does with folks all over the US. We help them collect their data and then make that data actionable and usable. So one of the frameworks that we use is called the 5 R's. And these are five like broad elements that we kind of help us organize around the most important outcomes for families. And they give us like a way to measure how well we're doing. So I'm going to go through the 5 R's really briefly. And of course, we're happy to share resources afterwards for folks that might need more information. So the first one is remain in home. Are children able to safely stay with their families? The next one is repeat maltreatment. Is there a new or maybe recurring instance of abuse or neglect? Reentry. Are children reentering out of home care after being reunified? Recovery. This is about the parents. Are parents getting into the treatment that they need? Is it an appropriate level of care? Are parents able to recover in a supportive, holistic environment? And then finally, it's retention and treatment. Are they staying in treatment long enough to actually benefit from it? So the great thing about the 5 R's is that because they're all R's, it's easier to kind of remember them, and it helps us focus on some of those larger themes that we want to think about as far as like children and family outcomes. But we also want to look at a few other things: how long someone stays in treatment, whether they complete it, absolutely important. But numbers don't always tell the whole story. We would also want to understand who's in the family treatment court. So be able to collect some of that demographic information on both parents and children. And that's really important because we want to know that the folks we're serving in the family treatment court are the ones that are in need of it. Are we actually meeting the needs of the community? And I think data collection and then being able to use a data dashboard is one way that we can, in fact, kind of do a comparison of the need of the community as well as who we're actually serving. And then a lot of family treatment courts have other evidence based programs or services that they provide to parents or children. So maybe parents are participating in celebrating families. That's a parenting program, or maybe children are receiving services that are proven to help, another evidence based type of service. Um, those are all really important details. And I think we would want to be interested in the broader support network. We know that there's other things that impact a person's ability to maintain recovery. So, do they have access to housing, transportation, medical and dental services, employment support, mental health services? So, all of those things, those social determinants of health that we understand make a really big difference in the ability to recover. And I just want to, I'll pass it over to Alexis in a second, but I just want to make one more point that we're not just looking at data dashboards. We want to make a concerted effort to really look at qualitative data as well. And so that's something that helps us get to the why. Like we have quantitative data, but we really need that contextual, nuanced, qualitative data to understand the why. Why are families succeeding? What is it about this particular family treatment court? Is it the relationship with the recovery specialist? Is it the structure of the program? Maybe the court's expectations? Maybe there's a specific service that's really making all of the difference. So when you combine the quantitative and the qualitative and you do what we call a mixed methods evaluation, you get a much bigger and broader picture of kind of what's happening. And I think that really helps to build a more responsive system. And this is a strategy that we use at Children and Family Futures. And we've worked with a family treatment court in California for many, many years, over 20 years. And we recently sought participant voice, we sought staff voice and staff perspectives, because those are the folks that are experiencing the family treatment court that can provide that important contextual information that can then guide your overall program evaluation and help you highlight both like the successes and then the opportunities where improvements could be made to help more families in the future.
Katie, you did such a fantastic job in outlining the 5 R's and all the different things that we could be capturing to make sure that the family treatment court is being successful. And it's just so important that we're using that data. And I think this is oftentimes another difference sometimes that we see in family treatment courts than other adult criminal treatment court models, is one of the things that you probably didn't hear Katie or Dr. Bada mention is we're not as interested in graduations. Oftentimes you hear success being measured by the percentage or number of graduations, who's graduating. And don't get me wrong, I love graduation. I love cake and balloons and hearing the success stories. It's one of my favorite things to do. But it is, yeah, getting a good cry, absolutely. But it's not the only outcome or even the primary outcome that we're interested in, because it's important to remember the reason why the case came into child welfare system in the first place, why this family is in front of you. And it's really about the child and family outcomes. It's about safety and healing families, as you could hear from the 5 R's, that framework. It's about reunifications and not coming back into the system. And although, we love graduations, we've seen families be very successful, have an incredibly successful case, and for whatever reason didn't graduate. And that is still, we want to make sure that's still being measured as success, because that is still success in our eyes. And so we want to know, is a family doing better? And what we've found through research is that even just by being in the family treatment court, even if you're not graduating, even if you leave the family treatment court midway through, outcomes are still better for those cases, which is really exciting. And The other kind of thing I want to mention too is because we like to focus on child outcomes, we know that a lot of cases that are in front of us involve crossover youth. So youth that are involved in both the child welfare and juvenile justice system. And what we know by research is 92% of those kids that are both in the child welfare and juvenile justice system, 92% were first involved in the child welfare system. So there really is an amazing opportunity to prevent children from future system involvement. And that is something that, we're really trying hard to measure to see what does that success look like for the children that are involved in the family treatment court. So not quite a data dashboard, a little bit lengthier than that, but it's really important. Um, and then I'll just add one more thing real quick, but just understanding your scale too is really important. So when I say scale, I mean of the universe of families that come in the child welfare system, how many are getting access to your family treatment court? How many referrals are you getting? How many are engaged? And throughout the case, where are they dropping off? That's kind of like a drop off analysis. And this will really help your family treatment court, your treatment court in general, be able to target resources at specific points of where you might see families drop off along the way. And that using that data is just so important to inform the decisions that you're making.
Some of this has really
Mhm.
struck me, and one of the things that I guess I want to interject here, we used to sit in staffing, and someone would be having a really rough time, and I've talked about this before, but we'd go around the room and everybody on the team would be commenting and, oh, they don't seem to be engaging, and the prosecutors, oh, are they getting anything out of treatment? And I remember this one time I looked at my judge and I said, do you think they're getting anything out of treatment? And she said, why don't we ask them? And so from that simple idea, it's like, okay. And then comes forward this idea of participant surveys. And like you said, staff surveys. And, we can tell how we're doing programmatically, but how do we know how they're doing at home? How do we know how they're physically feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? We don't know that stuff unless we ask them. So I appreciate your thoughts around quantitative versus qualitative data, because that
Yeah.
is something that sometimes when you're typing data into a data system that you miss. And so that's one of the things that we've encouraged on our end for development is this system for doing good survey work and sort of gathering that information as well.
Yeah.
So let
Shelly, it's
me
funny you mentioned that because when we do site visits for to go and assess practices and policies of family treatment courts, for a long time we were just observing and talking with professionals, and then since for a while now we started doing focus groups with the parents, and we have learned so much more
yes.
by having the opportunity to hear about the experience from the parents that are in the program. And it drives me nuts. It took us a little bit of time to start doing that, and now that's a regular practice. But that, if you're not doing that, that is key to really understanding what's happening with the family treatment court and the other services
Absolutely.
that the
Even in
parents
a
are
even in
accessing.
a status hearing, they might
Mhm,
stand up there and say, "Everything's going great with me, Judge. I'm doing great. I've got my job. I've got my house. I'm doing great." And then they go out and they have a trouble or a relapse or something. It's like,
mhm,
well, we just saw you and you were doing great. Yeah, but my mom's not doing great.
mm,
My mom has a
yeah,
health problem, and I couldn't help her to manage that, and just things that you can sort of vet out through those conversations and those interviews. So. Moving on, you guys, over 25 years of supporting these courts, what persistent challenges have you faced? And then I'm really curious about some challenges that are more surprising to you, like some barriers that have become more surprising to you.
yeah. That's such a great question, Shelley. We've seen a lot of challenges over the years, and honestly, this is exactly why training and technical assistance and evaluation is so important to the field. I would say one of the most persistent, and and the fact that it's still so persistent, and that's what's surprising to me, is getting people to stop thinking of family treatment court or as just a court program. If I could rename it, I would. And here's the thing, this is why. Child welfare, the courts, and treatment providers haven't always played well together. There is a long history of tension between these systems, and collaboration in general is hard. It takes trust, communication, willingness to kind of break down silos, re envision partnerships. And that's exactly what family treatment courts are built on, yet, really still struggle to break down some of those silos. They only work well when everyone, judges, caseworkers, treatment providers, attorneys, come together as true partners, as true system partners to support families. And when we look at cases that just didn't go well, we do that often. We kind of do a case review to say where did it go wrong? Where did we, just fail on this case? And it comes down so often to a breakdown in the collaboration, whether it's communication or breakdown in trust. And that is why a lot of our work, most of our work is focusing on strengthening those cross systems relationships. Um, Another big, I think, challenge that we experience, all of treatment courts experience, is stigma. It's a huge one. Stigma, and this one still surprises me too, because we have come so far as a field, and we have so much research backing, the disease of substance use disorders, but stigma around substance use is still so incredibly strong. Whether it's coming from the community or from the professionals that are maybe even on our own teams, or it's internalized by the parents or their family members. There was a recent study done in 2021, and they found that still in 2021, 75% of the public didn't believe that substance use disorders are a chronic illness. And so that this kind of stigma, it really does shape how people are treated, how services are delivered, how families are engaged, and how whether or not families feel safe to really go and ask for help. And that is a huge one. But there's good news. So family treatment courts, we have seen, have been a powerful tool to help fight that stigma. We've seen family treatment courts be really part of this development of what we call a recovery inclusive community, highlighting stories of success, bringing media to the family treatment court graduations, creating these, educating professionals and the public and the communities. And it may be in many places. And I recently went to a family treatment court that was viewed in their community as this beacon of hope, that it wasn't just for the families that got involved in the family treatment court, but really they're for the entire community. So at the end of the day, family treatment courts, this is what I think is so exciting, is not just about the families that get access to it, but it's about breaking down those silos. It's about doing business differently. It's about having parents, having families experience the system differently, and about healing communities. And I think those are some of the biggest challenges is how do we become, the ambassador for our families? How do we break down those silos, but also help combat the stigma that our families face every single day on a regular basis?
I just want to share one additional thought. I think, not surprising, I think data capacity and data sharing in family treatment courts is also a persistent challenge, meaning that the courts need the tools, the systems, the people, and they need to use the information in a way to help us do better work. And the truth is, many family treatment courts and the individuals working within them are stretched really thin, right? They're doing this amazing work, but they don't have time, staff, they don't have the tech to keep up with all the data that they could use to improve what they're doing. And sometimes the systems that they're using are outdated. It's all that they can manage, or they don't know about other opportunities that are out there, or they're pulling data from different sources and different places that don't speak to each other and don't connect. So I think that makes it really hard to get a full picture of what's happening. And even when the data is there and different systems do collect similar outcomes, it can be difficult to know what to do with it and to overcome those data sharing challenges. I think not everyone has the training or the support to sort of dig into the numbers or look at what is available to pull any insights out of that. And so we're not always able to use those data to learn and grow. And oftentimes they're used for just reporting purposes, maybe based on federal requirements or other funding requirements. And so the way I look at it is that like data is not just a checkbox. It's really learning about what's working, what's not. And there's a lot of different ways to think about it, but that's how we better support our families when we're able to tell the story of that impact, and then we can make smarter decisions based on that. So I think data capacity is a really big challenge, but it's also a really good opportunity. And if we can invest in the right tools and support, then we can turn those data into one of the biggest strengths, which is something that we do at CFF when we partner with sites. So it's an ongoing, persistent challenge. But as Alexis mentioned, there's movement of the needle and there's progress forward, and so we have to continue to keep talking about the importance so that we can continue to focus on that mission of improving the outcomes for those families.
I think that's probably a perfect lead into my next question. Clearly the field has made a lot of progress. We all have. Going back 40 years to those first treatment courts. We've learned a lot, and that has been, both. I think that collaborative atmosphere, and of course, being able to look at data and see what is working, what's not, make some correlations, things like that.
Yeah.
So the field has come a long way, but what innovations or shifts are you guys most looking forward to or most excited about?
The field has come a long way. What we know now has completely, changed our perception of treatment courts in general and family treatment courts specifically as well. Honestly, I think it's a really exciting time to be doing this work. We're learning so much through the incredible evaluations that are happening across the country, including the work done by our own research and evaluation team. What we're seeing some powerful, really powerful shifts, and I'm gonna probably I'll focus on two of them. I think that have me really really hopeful. So first, family treatment courts are starting to really move upstream. So what we're seeing is that family treatment courts are stepping in earlier, even before a petition is filed. These are often called pre-filing models or early intervention models. And what that means is that families can get the support and the services and this successful collaborative approach before a child is even ever removed from the home. And
If I could ask you, so does that mean like if someone has a DN case or doesn't have a DN case, they can still be possibly brought into a family treatment court? Is that
Absolutely. And we're seeing these across the nation. And I think Katie is probably is actively working with one right now when she can give that specific example. But absolutely, where a family can come and experience the collaborative success of the family treatment court even before a petition is filed, even before. So they might have involvement with the child welfare system, but not the dependency court system yet. And it sounds hard to wrap your head around, but there are models of this across the country. And one of them, so one of there was an initiative led by, it was funded by the Administration on Children, Youth, and Families, and it's an initiative that we were a part of, but that we led, and it was focused on this. We helped develop what they called collaborative community court teams. So lots of C's in there, and
the
many
C's
of
and
them.
the R's?
Yeah, CCRT, yeah, exactly. It was a hard acronym for me to let roll off my tongue when we got this initiative, but many of those were family treatment courts, and the goal was to implement the provisions of the Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act. And so that I'm not going to go into detail, but it's related to infants affected by prenatal substance exposure, and that including developing what is called plans of safe care. So basically, operating family treatment courts, were working with pregnant women, and helping them and supporting them to get in the services they need to avoid out of home placement once their baby was born, even if there was prenatal substance exposure. And it shows that they were already engaged in services and getting the supports that they needed, and the results were incredible. One of the grantees had 100% of infants discharged home with their parents after birth because the parents were continuing and engaged in treatment. So it's not just a win, but it's transformational. If you're listening, I mean, if you want to hear more about how family treatment courts can be part of that pre-filing work, we could do a whole episode on just that. But yeah, please reach out because there are examples of this. And I think, Katie, do you want to share a little bit about the one that you're working with?
We are working, as I mentioned, with a large county in California, and they have a voluntary program which is designed to keep families together safely. So referrals can come through CPS emergency response, maybe a social worker. So if a parent is struggling with substance use and that struggle has contributed to a substantiated case of abuse or neglect involving a child under 13, then they may be eligible for this voluntary program. So as long as the child can remain safely at home and there's no open dependency case and there's no termination of parental rights. And so the thing that's different about this, is Alexis mentioned, is that it's prevention, right? It's keeping the child in the home, and the court holds the dependency petition in abeyance, which means like it's paused. So when the parent engages in treatment and services, as long as the child remains safe and the parent stays on track, then the family like avoids being part of that formal dependency system, which like we've mentioned a couple of times is so critical and so important for the children. So parents will receive that really intensive case management. They get rapid access to treatment. There's judicial oversight, all while they still have their children in their care, which is the most amazing part. And so if they complete all the requirements, maybe they have to participate in a parenting class or counseling, then their case is closed. And so the goal is really powerful but simple. It's keep those children safe, support the parents, provide them with the support and resources that they need to maintain their recovery, and do all of that before separation becomes necessary. So the outcomes we're seeing for this program are really incredible. We do see strong graduation and 90-day certification and completion rates. But as Alexis mentioned earlier, we want to look beyond graduation rates. And the goal of this particular program is to reduce the number of kids that are in out of home care. But in that program, a small number do um, get placed in out of home care, they do enter it. So, with those children, we do see that nearly 90% reunify with their parent or their caregiver in less than 12 months. So, the goal is to really keep those kids at home. But if they have to, then the parents in that program are surrounded with that support to be able to provide them the resources that they need to then safely reunify with their children and then reduce the amount of time that their children are separated for them. So I just think a really amazing work is happening, and I just I think it's one of those innovative shifts that Alexis mentioned that hopefully more states, local jurisdictions, tribes can adopt in the future.
Yeah. I mean, talk about cost savings too, to the system, not having to, and the trauma, the, decrease of trauma that children and family have to experience. I think this notion of prevention and really going upstream and thinking about partnering with court differently, is incredibly exciting. The other kind of shift that we're seeing that, I'm really excited about is something that we call, infusion. It's really taking these effective ingredients, so those what's working well in a family treatment court, which we know by research, by evaluation, and taking those ingredients, like collaboration, compassion, accountability, and embedding those into the broader systems. And what we've seen, the success, of infusion in large, densely populated communities, things like implementing universal, screening, protocols, implementing improved communication pathways across the systems. We're seeing this really successful. And in some rural communities, we work a lot with rural communities as well. And they may call us up and say, we want to start a family treatment court. And when we look at their numbers, we look at their data, we realize that, they don't have a large number of cases that would be eligible for the family treatment court. And it doesn't really make sense to create a separate docket. So instead, we are working with communities to take those ingredients and applying them, the family treatment court approach, essentially, to all families affected by substance use. And it's really working. We've seen, well, there was research recently done, where it was qualitative. They did some interviews of professionals. And what we were learning in that judges, attorneys, caseworkers, and treatment providers are really changing how they approach every case that they experience, that they're assigned to, because of their experience in the family treatment court. So that's this ripple effect that we're seeing, that it's not just about, the parents that are getting served in the family treatment court, but really this collaborative approach is changing the way that systems are working together. It's changing the culture of how we serve families. And that when that happens, just everyone benefits. And that's something that we're seeing that's really exciting right now as well.
I know even in our court going back probably 10 years, we were encouraged by our state to implement the family strengths and needs surveys,
Mm.
just because we had all of our courts are family courts in a sense, because all of our people have children, or a great majority of them do, and so we didn't want to leave that out of our focus. Certainly, there's that's an important component for all of our participants. And so we found a lot of value in doing that as well. I think it became overwhelming to our court, trying to vet out all of those issues. And can we track attendance at school for children? Can we do these other things? And so that, born from that, for us anyway, was pulling other members onto our team.
Yes, yeah.
Even a school psychologist, a school resource officer, just anything that could assist in that. So I certainly hear that, and it's encouraging to know that that those programs are coming
And I
about.
don't know if you know this, but we were part of the development of the family strengths and needs survey.
Great.
And we pulled some data on that. I'll have to share it with you after this, but I think it was around 80% or more of the participants that completed that survey had a significant or very strong concerns about the well-being of their children or other family members. And what we took from that is, how do you focus on your own needs, your own recovery, when you have significant concerns about the well being of your family? And those, in the past weren't necessarily always brought into the case and the services. So it's such a breath of fresh air that I hear that you are doing that you brought those members on your team. Because I really truly believe that every treatment court is a family court, and we all heal within the family system. So I absolutely love that. I'm so happy that that's happening there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just a critical component. And again, that information, if it
Mhm.
doesn't have a place with us, we're missing something, right? So, looking ahead, you guys, what is your vision, for the future of these family treatment courts, and what do you think it's going to take to actually get there?
That's a great question. So I think, and I know our organization really feels that the next step is for family treatment courts to get on the Family First Prevention Services Act clearinghouse. So think of, if you're not familiar with that, think of an evidence-based clearinghouse like a trusted library or a stamp of approval for initiatives, for programs and practices. It reviews all the research to figure out what actually works. So getting family treatment courts recognized on the evidence-based clearinghouse, it isn't just a box to check. It would be a game changer because it validates that what we already know. It validates that this approach works, and it gives family treatment courts the credibility that they deserve. And backed by rigorous research, and opens the door. This is the really important thing. It will open the door to sustainable funding through federal programs like the Family First Prevention Services Act. Um, and more than that, it really would shift the narrative. When something is listed as evidence based, it really tells policymakers, funders, communities that this family treatment courts, they're not just a good idea, it's a proven solution. And that kind of recognition can really drive expansion, seeing more family treatment courts across the country and seeing bigger and more expansive family treatment courts. And it will also improve consistency and implementation. It's something that, we've seen is, I don't think I've ever been to two family treatment courts that are exactly alike. And one of the things that we do a lot is look at our family treatment courts consistently implementing best practices. And unfortunately, we don't see that consistent implementation of best practices across the nation. But doing this and getting on the clearinghouse will really help more families have access and more consistency. We know there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done to get there. And I think, Katie, what do you think are some ways or strategies that family treatment courts can help the field move to this goal?
Absolutely. I think there are so many things we can do to move closer to that goal. It feels like a big, lofty goal, but it's step by step and incremental progress is it's what it's going to take to get there. I think first, we need to document and standardize what makes family treatment courts effective, right? We want to clearly define the model. We want to know what are the core components. How do we measure consistency across the sites, as Alexis mentioned? We need to partner with researchers, and that's where the science kind of comes in. We know that there are very rigorous evaluation requirements to be rated by the clearinghouse. And then, so we have to be able to conduct those kind of randomized control trials or quasi experimental designs to be able to create that rigorous research base that can be then evaluated. But the thing is, we don't really have to do it alone. I know that there are universities, research centers, national organizations that are really ready to help mobilize folks, organize in a way that can make it easier to be able to be rated by the clearinghouse. I also think we need to engage judges, child welfare leaders, treatment providers, the people that actually see the impact of the family treatment court every day, and continue to build relationships and collaborations with them, because those relationships are what we need in order to reduce data capacity, data sharing challenges, right? So we have to have those collaborative relationships in order to come together to make this happen. And I think the other thing that we mentioned numerous times is really like listening to families with lived experience whose stories are really the heart of the work, and that we also need to involve those policymakers that Alexis mentioned, like the ones that can help align funding, they can work on legislation, they can work on systems to really support long term success. And then, of course, we want to leverage what we already have. Like, so much has been built. So many family treatment courts are already using evidence based components like parenting programs, like Celebrating Families. So, those are programs that are already rated by the clearinghouse. And so, I think that's a really great starting point. But just to bring it all back together, I think it's what we're trying to do is storytelling with data, and every successful reunification, every parent that completes treatment, every child that stays home safely, that's a data point, but that's also a story. And that's also an individual and a family. So focusing on this really large goal, but then also keeping in mind that these are families that we're working with, and all those data points are those individual families.
Yeah, I remember one of my first trips to All Rise, the Parade of Transformation, I think is what they call it.
Yes.
And I remember this gal, and her name was Mindy, and she got up there and she spoke, and her husband spoke, and a lot of gratitude about, thank you for getting me in the program. And there were a lot of people and then her little boy got up there and spoke. It was
Life
Everyone needs
altering,
to
life
be,
altering.
yeah,
Yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
If you guys could wave a magic wand and fix one thing about how the system views family treatment courts, or the families that they serve, the families we're talking about, what would that be? What would that thing be?
Can I have a big wand and a small wand?
It's magic. You can do
So
whatever you want.
I have a big magic wand and I have a small magic wand. The small one I think is very doable. I think for my small magic wand, I would want family treatment courts to be seen not as a program, but as the approach for families in the child welfare system who have a moderate to severe substance use disorder. It wouldn't just be a program that people refer to and maybe get to serve 10% of the families. It would be the way that families experience, and it would be an automatic process. It would be a intervention along a continuum of services based on need of the family versus a program that gets referred to. And I think that we have seen already start shifting to that, where it's not a depending on what attorney you get assigned, or depending on what child welfare worker you might get assigned, depends on whether or not you get referred to the family treatment court. Really thinking about it as a systemic and objective approach to make sure that every single family that needs this level of support gets access to it. So that's my little wand, and I think it's doable. I really think it's doable. My bigger wand, I think it's doable, but I think it would take a lot more work. So now my big magic wand is that we wouldn't need family treatment courts, because this wouldn't be a specialized approach or a separate docket. It would just be the way that we do business across the board. We wouldn't need this kind of unique approach to break down silos. There wouldn't be silos. The systems would already work together. We would, combat stigma, improve access to services. These things would already be built into the system. So like every family, every case would be met with this compassion, this collaboration, this commitment to healing, this commitment to cross systems collaboration and communication, where we put the family at the center of every decision, and that we work together across the systems to remove barriers that are affecting that family from having success. And so I just think if we could think about, if we know this works so well, if we know it works better and has such amazing outcomes, then why aren't we changing the way that we work together on behalf of all families? We'd stop this cycle. We've seen it, right? This cycle of multi generational system involvement, because we would be treating families, full families, with the dignity and give them the tools that they need to thrive. And we wouldn't just be changing one case, we'd really be changing the future. So we are truly improving the lives of children. And I'll circle back to what I said originally about the passion why I came here, is that if we improve the lives of the children, then later they do not become the parents that we are serving in our family treatment court. So that's my small and my big
Wow.
wand.
Amen. Can I just piggyback on that? That was
Yeah.
amazing. I totally agree with you, Alexis. I feel that perception shapes policy. So when systems view families as broken or um, unworthy of healing, then the response is often very like procedural or punitive. And so when we can do have that paradigm shift and we can think of families as capable and worthy, then our response becomes more collaborative and more restorative. And I couldn't agree more with what you shared. Oh, wait, there's one more thing, which I think you wouldn't be surprised to hear, that if I had a magic wand, I would want every family treatment court to have an evaluator, either contracted or on staff. It's so absolutely important, and that it takes the pressure off of the coordinators or the other folks that are doing the day-to-day work. And so I think having that evaluator as part of the team is so critical. And so that's my little wand as well.
We get two
I agree with all of those points.
wands.
Super important stuff, and I think all of that is attainable. We can do these things. They're hard things, but we can do these things if we're all, continue to be the voices and
Yeah,
raise up those little voices.
absolutely,
Um, so,
absolutely.
I hope. I hope that we all continue to move forward in this stuff and bring others along. But if there was one takeaway for the people that are listening today, our viewers, um, what would that be? What would you want them to walk away knowing from this?
Well, there's a lot thrown at you during this episode, but if there's one thing I hope that sticks with you, it is, yes, this work is hard. But it's really the hard that makes it so meaningful. And the challenges we face aren't roadblocks, but they're really reminders of that what we're doing matters. But there's good news in that, and you do not have to do it alone. There's a whole community. We talked a lot about them today just on this call. There's a whole community out there, peers, partners, resources ready to support you in this work. So reach out to us, reach out to your peers, ask for help, share what you've learned, because the most powerful change that we have seen happen across the field is when we do this work together. And maybe the most exciting part, which I feel is exciting, is that we're never done. There's always more to learn, more to improve, more families to lift up. And we are learning more and more through evaluation, through looking at practices, effective practices that are working. We are learning more and more every day. And that's what makes this work so incredible. It's a journey of constant growth fueled by purpose and collaborative and uniformed and hope, that what we do, what we're doing this for the families. And I believe the families are so worth it.
Absolutely. I'll just say, based on, yeah, that every family is worth it, that no matter whether you're in a large urban center, a small rural or tribal community, that your evaluation matters because the families matter and all those families count, and every child's future is really worth measuring. So I think the biggest thing is you can always start somewhere. So if you haven't started anywhere, you could start somewhere. Maybe it's tracking how many families complete treatment, how many, maybe it's listening to parents' stories, maybe it's asking, is what we're doing working? So I think my big message is that no matter where you are or where you're at in your evaluation, that you can do big work and that your data matters and your outcomes matter. And so at CFF, we've conducted evaluations across small to large. And so feel free to reach out. But these families matter. And so we'll continue to work, and we, hopefully we'll be able to collaborate in the future, especially to keep this work going. Um, but I want to say thank you to again, Shelley, for having us come and for really giving us space for this thoughtful discussion. And I just appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, I echo
Well,
that completely, Shelley. Thanks for having us. And I was excited to hear about the work that you're doing as well. And, as technical assistance providers and evaluators at our organization, we don't always get to, have that experience at the firsthand on the ground work. And it's the work you're doing that we get to learn from and get to share that back out with the field. And just, when you shared about your team, and the new folks that you have on your team now to start measuring children's outcomes in a different way. I think that's the beauty of this opportunity to provide technical assistance, is that you are all the experts doing the hard work every day, and we get to learn from you, and then we get to share that with others, so that we are all doing effective practice for families and learning from any missteps that people have taken along the way. So I just appreciate you sharing your experience and your stories as well, Shelley, and allowing us to share ours.
well, and thank you. And to our broader audience out there, I will tell you that you are our research and development department. So you're the families, you're the children, you're the community members, you're the judges, you're all of those. And I think the message is clear today that when we collaborate and when we get together and when we talk through these things, we can do the hard work, and people will benefit from it. So thank you both. I appreciate this time together. I'm going to log off and have lots to reflect upon. So thank you very much. Enjoy your
Thank you,
rest
Shelley.
of your day.
Thank you so much, Shelley.